we are expecting President Trump to appear publicly and take some questions from journalists after Israel dramatically escalated its war against Hamas, this time by striking a Hamas target inside the nation of Qatar.
In global politics, there are nations that dominate through sheer size, military might, or economic clout. And then there are nations like Qatar. Small in territory, modest in population, but outsized in influence. It is a country that has mastered the art of survival and relevance by positioning itself as the indispensable mediator in some of the world's most intractable conflicts. Yet today, as the Israel-Hamas war grinds into yet another year with no end in sight, Qatar's carefully constructed balancing act faces the greatest test in its modern history. This is Doha's dilemma, the struggle to maintain its mediator status while under pressure from Israel, the United States, and the wider world, all of whom are questioning whether Qatar is truly a force for peace or simply playing both sides for power. As of September 13, 2025, the diplomatic scene is tense. Ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas remain deadlocked despite weeks of shuttle diplomacy, with negotiations hosted in both Doha and Cairo. Qatar has emerged once again as a central player in the discussions, leveraging its unique position as the one Gulf state that openly engages with Hamas. Yet this role, which once made Doha an indispensable bridge, is now attracting unprecedented criticism. Israeli officials, frustrated by Hamas's refusal to budge, have turned their anger toward Qatar, accusing it of sheltering the group's leadership and bankrolling its survival. American officials too, while still working closely with Qatar, in Washington's political circles, the debate has grown louder. Is Qatar helping bring peace closer, or is it giving Hamas exactly what it needs to prolong the war? To understand how Qatar reached this precarious position, we need to look at the foundations of its foreign policy. Unlike its larger neighbors, Saudi Arabia to the west, Iran across the Gulf, Qatar does not rely on military strength to assert itself. Instead, it has built a reputation as the Middle East's fixer. It opened its doors to actors that others shunned, including Hamas, Hezbollah-linked figures, and even the Taliban. By serving as host and mediator, Qatar ensured that, when conflict erupted, world powers had no choice but to call Doha. This strategy gave Qatar international prestige, leverage, and a sense of security. Mediation became its shield against isolation, and dialogue its weapon in regional rivalries. But this strategy comes at a cost. Mediation only works when all sides still trust the mediator's intentions. And in the current war between Israel and Hamas, that trust is breaking down. Israel argues that Qatar's financial aid to Gaza, which Doha insists is purely humanitarian, strengthens Hamas's political grip on the territory. The accusation is not new, but in the wake of ongoing hostilities, it has become more pointed. This week, a senior Israeli minister openly declared that Doha writes the checks that keep Hamas alive. For Israel, Qatar is not just a mediator, but part of the problem. The United States takes a more nuanced view. Washington recognizes that Qatar's influence over Hamas is unmatched. Without Doha's channels, negotiations would be nearly impossible. At the same time, this very influence is the source of frustration. American diplomats want Qatar to use its leverage to pressure Hamas into releasing hostages and softening its demands. But Doha is cautious. Push Hamas too hard, and it risks losing the trust that gives it influence in the first place. Go too soft, and it risks losing Washington's patience. This paradox is the very heart of Qatar's dilemma. Its role as mediator depends on maintaining ties with groups the West calls terrorists, yet those ties also undermine its legitimacy as a neutral broker. The image problem goes further than the battlefield and the negotiating table. Qatar has spent decades investing in soft power to polish its global reputation. It hosted the FIFA World Cup in 2022, built Al Jazeera into one of the most influential media networks in the Arab world, and poured billions into humanitarian aid and cultural diplomacy. For Qatar, this criticism is dangerous. Its power does not come from tanks or missiles, but from reputation. Qatar risks isolation in a region where small states without strong alliances can quickly be squeezed by larger rivals. This is why Doha is pushing so hard to stay at the center of the Israel-Hamas negotiations. Its diplomats shuttle between Tel Aviv, Cairo, Washington, and Gaza. It offers aid packages, proposes frameworks. The broader regional context adds to the pressure. Qatar hosts the largest American military base in the Middle East, making it a vital U.S. partner in security and counterterrorism. At the same time, it maintains cordial ties with Iran, a country deeply involved in supporting Hamas and Hezbollah. This dual positioning has always given Qatar leverage, but in today's climate, it looks more like a dangerous tightrope. Unlike smaller regional disputes where Qatar's mediation was applauded, this war has polarized opinions sharply. Failure here does not just risk Qatar's reputation, it threatens the very foundation of its foreign policy model. The question now is whether Doha can find a way to deliver results that satisfy enough of the key players to preserve its role. Qatar's dilemma, then, is about more than Hamas, Israel, or even Palestine. It is about the limits of small-state diplomacy in a world where trust is fragile and reputations can collapse overnight. For decades, Doha has thrived by talking to everyone when no one else could. But mediation only matters if both sides still believe in it. In the end, Qatar's dilemma captures the paradox of modern diplomacy. Here is a country smaller than most world capitals, yet carrying the weight of some of the Middle East's greatest conflicts on its shoulders. Its role as mediator has given it prestige, protection, and power, but it has also tied its fate to disputes it cannot fully control. The Israel-Hamas war has pushed Doha into the spotlight once again, but this time the risks are higher, the stakes greater, and the margin for error dangerously slim. As the world watches, the question is not just whether Qatar can deliver a breakthrough in talks, but whether it can preserve its very identity as the indispensable broker of the region. Failure could leave Doha isolated, with its rivals circling and its carefully built image in tatters. Success, however, could reaffirm its position as the rare state that can talk to all sides, even in the darkest of times. For now, the clock is ticking, the war drags on, and the world waits to see whether Qatar's gamble on mediation will secure its place as a peacemaker, or expose it as a power caught in its own contradictions. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss our next deep dive into global politics.